Hello, and welcome to the Summer of Best Ball with yours truly, Justin Herzig. It's August 9th. We're only 31 days away from opening night. We are in the heat of football season. Preseason's kicking off this Thursday. I'm excited. Continuing on throughout this summer. For the rest of the month, I'll continue to host these Underdog Best Ball streams, bringing on some special guests. You can catch us every Tuesday, Thursday live on the ETR channel, hosted in partnership with the Owners Club. Coming very soon, a new way to play best ball and fantasy football. Also, want to give a heads up to let people know that everyone who signs up for the ETR Draft Kit Pro will get a free $10 on Underdog. This comes with our best ball rankings, content, season-long Dynasty coverage, everything you need. Even if you already have that Underdog account, you can still get the free $10, no strings attached. Get the Draft Kit Pro, head over to Underdog Content Hub on ETR that has a link to claim your $10. And if you're new to Underdog, promo code ETR will get you up to a $100 deposit bonus. And now, with us this afternoon, you may know him from his helicopter predictions, the king of the one-line meme tweets, the one-man Auden Tate cheering squad, host of PFF's Fantasy Podcast, Mr. Ian Hartitz. How are we doing?
Doesn't sound quite as impressive, I guess, when you spell it out like that one after another. But you know what? We'll take it. It's always a great day to be great, as you know. Appreciate you having me on, man. We did one of these streams together on my Thursday night show alongside John Daigle and Hayden Winks. That was a fun time. Ready to get after it again. You know, I want to get your takes on some of these training camp storylines. It seems like we had everything figured out once August started. Now Isaiah Pacheco's going in round 12 of high-stakes drafts, man. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills over here.
Oh my gosh, Romeo Doubs, Isaiah Pacheco, who else we've got? At some point, draft capital still has to matter, but fourth round wide receiver, sixth round rookie. I don't know.
We all keep a level head all offseason, and then we get like one. I know there's been more than one training camp report on these guys being good, but come on. It's just wild. And it's one of these things too that we gotta be really careful about, because I think a lot of times in this type of season, we don't consume all the training camp reports. We just see some of them. So we got to be careful about just only weighting the ones that we see. That one woman, I'm not blaming her, but she the woman that reported the Isaiah Spiller getting the only, reps behind Austin Eckler with the Chargers first team offense. Like, she came back and corrected her own tweet a couple hours later, but the original had, 4,000 likes and the correction had like 60. So it's just one of those things where, again, really it's a constant drumbeat throughout training camp is great. I don't want to hear the player sucks, but more than anything, man, we're about to get it this weekend. These first team snaps in the preseason, not some random drone practice. That's what we really care about.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, so many of these stories, it has to fit with one of two things. It either has to fit your priors or it fits in a narrative. And so, for example, I think the Romeo Doubs is so interesting because, the narrative is Rodgers does not like rookies. He does not throw to rookies. Amari Rodgers last year never saw the field. He never had that connection. But then you have Rodgers fresh off of his, off in the wilderness acid trips, or what is it, Hayasaka? I think that's what it's called. The kids are doing it these days. Comes out and starts absolutely applauding a rookie. And so I think that's where, it fits into our narrative. We want to believe it. We know that there's an opportunity. I'm just not buying at this current price. I'll say that.
Yeah, and that's all it is with it. So, hey, we are talking about Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers led offenses with, depth charts that don't have the most clear opportunity. It's just things we choose to focus on, in August versus, September, November, and things like that always tend to crack me up. Same thing with the running back discussions, man. Look, someone like Kenneth Walker, who is a great player. We all saw him play at Michigan State, but it's just funny how, in April and May, it's like, oh, look at this guy's vision. Think about how he's going to fit in this scheme. And then, November comes along and we're like, hey, Dearness Johnson's a top 10 running back because he's going to have over 20 touches this week. And I know Dearness has some good metrics too, but again, man, usually just comes down to that sweet volume, especially at running back, obviously.
Yeah. I think Denver is the most interesting situation. And then from the guy comes out and says, he thinks that there's a possibility that Javonte is going to take an 80-20 share. And The thing is, the people who are making these quotes aren't the people like us who are so in the weeds to understand that literally no one has an 80-20 share. I think it was probably maybe two running backs at most, 3 last year. That's absurd. Never going to happen. So then even the 70-30 puts you in the higher, the top, I don't know, maybe 5-7 amount of running backs, maybe 10. And then we see the reports that are actually, it's more like that 55-45 split. So a lots of stuff to kind of, waft through. Missing the word there, but
it is really tough in those offenses. I mean, Denver definitely applies. I think Chicago applies, Minnesota, and and Miami. Like those are the 4 offenses where we have new head coaches that were offensive coordinators for Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, and we look at those tendencies, and obviously those coaches are great at what they do. But as we've seen over the years, just because you worked underneath a great coach doesn't necessarily mean you are going to be a great coach. So that'll be what's interesting there, because a lot of those coaches, I mean, at least the LaFleur tree, Luke Getsy now in Chicago, and then Nathaniel Hackett in Denver, not only at running back, but at tight end. I mean, these were offenses that have consistently used multiple bodies, despite having guys like Aaron Jones and then Robert Tonyan like going bonkers. Like even huge seasons from these guys didn't really stop LaFleur from going ahead and using a committee cast. So if we're going to see that, the Denver tight end room, Denver running back room, Chicago tight end room, Chicago running back room, it's gonna prove problematic for some of these guys going a little bit higher than maybe they should.
Definitely hear that. All right, well, this is some great discussion. We will definitely keep it going throughout the draft, but let's jump on in. Let's get in one of these BBMs, and as we're doing it, let's do chat's favorite segment. Ian, start us off. What are your 2 truths, 1 lie? Let's go.
Oh, here we go. Let me get it pulled up. Took a lot of time coming up with these, everyone. All right, I'm not gonna tell you guys what the truths are, what the lies are. Not going to make that mistake. But all right, here is my statement number 1. Isaiah Spiller is the best late round running back available. I'm calling late round as rounds 10 and on. Statement number 2, Tyler Boyd has what the kids might call league winning upside. And statement number 3, Cordero Patterson is a damn bargain where he's going at right now.
I like him. Okay, we've got some time before our pick. Let's think on it. So once again, we got the Isaiah Spiller we've got as the best late round running back. We've got Tyler Boyd with league winning upside, and we've got Cordero Patterson is a damn bargain. We know that Ian loves his Auden Tate. Is that influencing his Cordero Patterson love? We've heard a little about Isaiah Spiller and kind of the preseason reports. What do people think? Let us know. Boyd, Spiller, Cordero.
All I got to do is watch Falcons games now. I got Auden Tate out there. I got Cordero out there. Maybe we get Duke Johnson getting cut eventually. He catches on in a backfield that could use another player. Chris Herndon's not too far down the street in New Orleans.
Damian Williams is still there if you really like the old guys.
There we go. Bro, Damian Williams, that 2019 playoff run.
Oh, God.
Did a few things.
Oh, and then, feels like he took the year off with the COVID aspect and, had a huge opportunity, could have really taken the lead role in that first year when CEH didn't do much. Would have been interesting, but
I haven't seen these percentages before. Is that like your exposure to the guys?
Yeah, so today what I have is, on the right-hand side is my exposure. On the left-hand side is a target exposure that takes into account mine, Pete Overzet's, Pat Karanes, Davis Maddock, and a few others. And then, because I'm sure you already know your Week 17 matchups, I got rid of those, and I added a playoff strength of schedule on the side as well. So 1 is the hardest, 10 is the easiest. Starting
is that easy for someone like me to do, or do you have to hack it?
No, pretty easy.
Okay. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So top of the board here, number 5. Are you going with Chase or going astray?
I always go Jamar Chase here.
Yeah. Pretty top 5 are always pretty set for me. When we look here, I think this is what we've started to see a little more often now, as Cooper Kupp has been dropping with this Matt Stafford news. This I'd probably still put JT above for these drafts, but I think this is pretty much the 5 that I've been seeing with that Cooper Kupp now moving to 4 movement.
I think it's fair. I mean, I've always had a 1A, 1B throughout the offseason. I was Kupp over Jefferson. I had a Joy McFarland and I did a football guys draft last night, and we were kind of talking about if the Stafford news is enough to kind of just have that extra little jump. And I was telling Dwayne, it looks so fun. Like the guys I see that have Justin Jefferson just as the wide receiver 1. So it might be one of those things. It's the same, I'm on the Christian McCaffrey, RB1 bandwagon. It's a fun time over here. I might just have to get off the Kupp train at this point. It is a big problem. And, with someone like DK Metcalf, I've asked the question okay, well, if Cooper Kupp was catching passes from John Wolford or Justin Jefferson catching passes from Sean Mannion, would these guys legit be going outside the top 24? You could argue, yes, if the quarterback is that bad. So, Rams can say Stafford's on his regular throwing schedule. It's just not ideal, man. I mean, it gives me a little bit of at least kind of Dak Prescott Cowboys vibes, where I certainly don't think we're necessarily getting the entire story here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm going back to, I remember I was talking about this back in March. So March 17th, I have a tweet that said, Cooper Kupp is no longer my number one wide receiver in drafts. I had Jamar Chase and Devontae Adams ahead of him. Now, granted, this was Devontae before the trade, so this was still Green Bay. I must have missed Jefferson there. I think I had Jefferson number 4. But again, it was about like, how repeatable is such an outlier season for Cooper Kupp? Like, he always had the peripherals. We knew it was possible with Stafford there. And this is obviously before any of the Stafford injury risk, but it was just like the archetype of the, what we've seen on Jamar Chase and that upside. Devontae doing it year in and year out. And Cooper Kupp, like, it took him a little while to really reach that peak. Is that something that should concern us? I don't know.
It's one of those things where we don't need him to do what he did last season. That was literally the most productive fantasy football wide receiver season ever. And all right, take away the 17th game, then like 1994, Jerry Rice beat him. Just either way, man, what he was able to do last season. I don't think he's going to repeat it, but hell, if it goes 90%, that might be enough to be the overall wide receiver 1 again. So it is interesting though, because again, we're talking like no one's Cooper Kupp. Maybe you have him like 5th or 6th overall. That's probably about the furthest anyone could rationalize. It starts getting interesting at this point. Like, do you find yourself kind of going after the Deebo Samuels of the world here in round 2? Because more and more, man, I like my builds when I'm able to get at least 1, if not 2 running backs in these first 3 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, so you can see I've been lower on Deebo. ETR in general has been lower on Deebo. If I was going to take him, this is the place. And so what are your thoughts here? Do you have Mike Evans above him? Do you want to go with tight end? I agree. It's one of these 3.
I think this is the draft to take Deebo.
Okay.
Past ADP a little bit. Right as I was talking about not taking him as much. So, hey, the pathway to him getting there is either him being one of the best players in the league again, which we just saw him do last season, or just getting the role he had more so as the team's primary wide receiver 1. I know a lot of people didn't care when he switched because the fantasy points didn't fall off. It went from 21 to 20 PPR points per game, weeks 1 through 9, weeks 10 through the NFC Championship when he was playing more primary running back. But the expected points, man, went from like 17.4 to like 12.9. We don't want those rush attempts. That's why when people tell me, they're like, what if Cordero Patterson plays more wide receiver? It's like, great. Give us 5 targets over 5 rush attempts 8 days of the week. Like, he can give us 3 targets over 5 rush attempts and we'll be taking that. So with Deebo, I just think there's a risk because we don't see many offenses, man, with the sort of talent they have where you actually could rationalize not force feeding Deebo the ball.
Yeah. And we will get back to the 2 truths, 1 lie, but one last thing. So yeah, Levitan just tweeted out earlier, still so insane what Deebo Samuel did last season in terms of efficiency. Led the entire NFL in yards per catch, despite ranking 87th among qualifying receivers in average depth of target, and then scored 8 rushing touchdowns on just 59 attempts. I think like insane efficiency. Can that be repeated? I think that's the big question. Let's decide what we're going to pick here, and then we'll go back to those 2 truths, 1 lie.
All those same advanced metrics that people jerk off Javonte Williams about, like Deebo was even better in them. Now, smaller sample size, but it really is wild. Oh, man, we're going, I guess, for 0 RBN. Okay, let's get weird.
I mean, we've got the little Jamar Chase, little T. Higgins. Go with the 2 big men. I like it.
Higgins fall in the middle round 3 now, man. I will take that. A
little value. We got a note here. All right. Nothing to be concerned about. 2 hours ago, had to make sure that there wasn't something being thrown in.
That's always scary. And we got him past ADP. All right.
I mean, hey, we're getting some values here early on, but getting those values, and always fun to do a 0 RB team when you're not reaching to make it work. All right, now, give us those 2 truths, 1 lie. What do you got for us?
Oh, I gotta tell you people now. Okay, the lie is Isaiah Spiller is the best late round running back available. I don't hate Isaiah Spiller where he's going, but I really think the potential standalone value is being overrated in an offense that even last year, you take everything that Justin Jackson, Joshua Kelly, and Larry Roundtree combined for, and it was like 133 carries and 30 some targets. I think it's very unlikely that Spiller gets that. To me, there's guys going later like Darrell Henderson and Jamal Williams who have a better chance at being, not someone that you're thrilled about starting every week, but someone that could get you, I think, more standalone weeks with similar, if not, you could even argue better potential handcuff upside. I would say the truth. Tyler Boyd has what the kids might call league winning upside. Just year after year, man, he has that like Jarvis Landry syndrome where we just always price the guy down no matter what. And if we look at the games that, Jamar Chase wasn't involved in, obviously Burrow's rookie year, and then the ones Higgins missed last year, we have seen Joe Burrow start to force feed Tyler Boyd the ball. And I think that's similar to kind of what we see with Tom Brady when a wide receiver leaves. Like, it's not, I don't see Mike Thomas, the other Mike Thomas, basically ascending into the top 3 in Burrow's pecking order necessarily if one of those guys gets hurt. I think Boyd takes a big leap forward. If none of that happens, he'll probably finish as a low-end wide receiver 3 like he's finished the last 2 years, being priced as a wide receiver 5. And finally, Cordero Patterson, damn bargain where he's going. Dude, I think you can have an argument for CPAT as like a low-end RB2 based on what he did last year and his projected role for this year when they brought in Damian Williams on a 1-year nothing deal and a 5th-round draft pick and Tyler Algier. Like, Cordero Patterson, other than whoever the hell is going to start in Houston, is literally the cheapest starting running back in all fantasy football. There's like 200 available carries and targets in the backfield from Mike Davis leaving in the first place. Like, this is not a competition for the starting job. It's CPAT, and then one of these other guys, or maybe a list of them, are going to get some early down work. Yeah, the offense sucks. Again, he's going outside the top 36 running backs. We saw the guy work as a top 7 running back for half the season. I really wonder, someone like Cordero, when he got hurt against the Cowboys, if he just didn't play the rest of the season, how would we be treating him now? Instead, he fell off a little bit trying to play hurt. Cordero Patterson, go get him. Well, hey, this is the type of lineup where we are going to want some CPAT.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I've always been saying I like him on Underdog. I love him on the PPR sites.
Yeah,
that's where there is just insane value. And Tyler Algier, he was a 5th-round draft pick. 5th-round running backs, their success rate is so low. This is not a reason to not draft CPAT. And you know what? If anything, oh my gosh, we're going to get James Conner at this value?
Yep. Lock it in.
Easy
That's
game.
I'm maybe shying away a little bit from Conner in round 3, but the last 2 drafts I've been in, he just falls to round 4. So, I remember last night, Dwayne and I were like, all right, ETN versus Conner. Yeah, we're going to go with ETN here round 3. Round 4? Sign me up, man.
Yeah, I don't know why he's falling. Because we think Eno's going to play the Chase Edmonds role. Like, come on. I mean, yeah,
what happened last year when Chase Edmonds was out? It was just all the James Conner show. Who'd they give the money to? James Conner. Who's the better pass protector? Who's the better receiver? It's all coming up James Conner, man.
And the downside of this is that if he does lose some of the passing down work, like, he's not going to lose the goal line work. And so maybe he then becomes like, a 3rd, 4th round value by the end. But
the Cardinals literally, I know usually dual threat quarterbacks, like how many times did Jalen Hurts just sneak across the goal line last year? We don't love him around the goal line necessarily. And I know Kyler does have a good chunk of rushing touchdowns, but one of the beat writers made the note to me, man, like, they don't use him to quarterback sneak. And then I looked it up with our fancy PFF advanced tools, and they only have done it once with him his entire career. McCoy and like Strevler, who played like 3 or 4 games, had like 5 combined QB sneaks. So that's what James Conner is there for. And, we see regression. Guys that score 20 touchdowns this season usually score less the following season, but it's really not as steep, I think, as a lot of people give it credit for. This is the sort of offense where we could see it continuing.
Yeah, his touchdown hyper efficiency was impressive during that 6 or 8, maybe it was 8-week stretch last year. They like him. They want to keep using him. Nothing. I'm not scared about James Conner.
What are you thinking here? I'd almost prefer. Oh, there goes Goblin. Fuck me.
Man, Breece Hall is just a screaming value here for a team that needs running backs.
I'm cool with Breece. This is a good spot to get Breece.
I'm good. Again, you can see, I do not have much Breece Hall. I have a substantial amount more of Michael Carter right there, 12%. But when pick 53, 41 on a team that needs a running back? Yeah, that's a draft.
I'll take it there. The funny thing with Michael Carter, man, he's got the same, tackle breaking metrics as Javonte Williams, and people don't care. And then he's got the same targets per route run thing going for him as Kenneth Gainwell, and people still don't care, man. And I know the latter one's a little bit influenced by Captain Checkdown Mike White just going out there and checking the ball down every single chance he got. So I know that inflated a little bit, but Michael Carter's good, man. He's in an offense that has consistently just shown that they're willing to use committee backs, and that goes all the way back kind of to the Shanahan pipeline. ton of us not always knowing what's going on. So at a minimum, I look at Carter almost like Henderson and Jamal Williams, where I really think there's a chance that he has this 1B role that's less of a, pure backup. And what if something does happen to Breece Hall? Unfortunately, Michael Carter is someone that, it's not a Tony Pollard top 5 running back situation, but he'd still be, I think, in that kind of upside RB2 conversation if we were all of a sudden getting an every down role.
Yeah. And I would say, I don't even want to say there's a chance he's the 1B. I think there's like a decent likelihood. Like that may even be the more logical outcome. And like you mentioned, he's in an offense where the staff like is used to using them, multiple running backs. He's also in a league that we're seeing multiple running backs be the norm. It is a substantial outlier if you have a bell cow. So why are we to assume that they're going to have a bell cow? Michael Carter was never the bell cow. Yes, Michael Carter doesn't have the draft capital that Breece Hall does, but that doesn't matter. We can't just assume that this is going to be an immediate outlier situation that, it's going to be that 70, 80% that we're talking about. 60-40 is far more likely, and Michael Carter can hit value at his base and then has substantial upside if, Breece Hall does go down.
And that's why round 5 Breece is fine. We got him behind guys like Connor, Zeke, and Akers, who I just think have so much more guaranteed volume. It's just tough to kind of build a full argument. But hey, this is why, again, I'm fine mixing up our lineups here, especially in a big field tournament like this. But I think in redraft, man, I feel a lot better about the lineups that get a couple running backs early because, again, once you get past kind of that first elite tier of wide receivers, you do start to have question marks all the way down. Do we need to go? I say we risk it on Burrow coming back to us. We don't want to reach on this.
I agree. There's a lot of others. We also have the Lance if Burrow left. Okay. I think we can wait there, especially when you've got a bunch of QBs. Montgomery, Thielen, Tony.
Thielen or Tony, I'm cool with whoever. I think I have Thielen ranked higher, but I love Tony.
I think it's a wash, and I think the one thing, so Thielen, I'll take for the ADP there. One thing that we're not discussing with Thielen is, let's start with this. The things that we are discussing is it's a highly concentrated offense. There's a likelihood that they're going to throw more this year, and Thielen still has been a touchdown monster. Now, what we are also discussing is that his efficiency has gone down. That is a concern as he gets older. The thing that I think we're missing is there's that contingency value for if Justin Jefferson does get hurt, if something happens there, yes, obviously, they're number 3, who I'm immediately blanking right now.
KJ Osborne
is going to get an increase in targets, and he'll probably be the beneficiary. But Thielen also getting a 20-30% increase in targets as a result is huge and moves him into the wide receiver 2 conversation. Yeah. That's why I'm perfectly happy grabbing a Thielen, especially in this team where we're not going to be crazy wide receiver heavy. So having a very solid 6 or 7 is valuable to me.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, the guy's tied for 3rd in receiving touchdowns over the past 2 seasons. And I do think that scoring touchdowns is a bit of a skill. I think we're still getting better at helping measure that. So at a minimum, I mean, you can't deny that, just the chemistry him and Cousins have once you get in that area of the field. Thielen's great. He's been great. He's never exactly been a guy that's just been running past you. And while the nagging hamstring problems, not ideal. Again, what we get him at wide receiver 36 or 37, I think that's all being priced into it. One question I like to ask with some of these guys is where are we drafting them at? And then where are they going to be ranked at the position in week 1? Thielen's one of those guys where it's going to be hard to be naming, more than 25 or so wide receivers before it's shit, Adam Thielen with 8 or 9 targets out here, man.
Yeah. And then I want to talk on a brief draft strategy aspect. So I do think it was worth noting if you saw where we were in our decision not to draft Joe Burrow, where a lot of people would be well, I drafted the 2 wide receivers. I want to make sure I get Burrow. So we've got him at the top of the queue. So we're okay here. But when we took a look at who was in between us here. You had someone already had Mahomes, someone already had Herbert, someone already had Lamar. And then who was available? You had Jalen Hurts, and you had a couple other QBs that were also near there with that option where if we didn't get Trey, we still have, if we didn't get Joe, we still have that option at the Trey. So loved that kind of waiting aspect. Worked out really well for
us. Dog loves it too.
Arnie loves it too.
I think Hayden Winks had some good notes on this when we've just done some drafts in the past where his point was basically exactly what you're saying. Where you just don't reach on him there because you lose the chance to get someone obviously at the previous pick. And, there's so many freaking entries in this. If we if we reach, like someone else is absolutely going to reach at that same spot. So giving us the chance to have Burrow come to us actually a few picks past ADP. Hey, first or last, man. I think that's the type of risk we need to take here.
Yep, I like it. And right after that, Trey goes. Dak goes to pair with the Dalton here.
There we go. Okay,
overall,
squad's looking good.
Yeah, I was gonna say feeling pretty good. Very strong wide receivers. Yeah, what's your thought on tight end this year? Are you in the, if you missed the elite weight, do you like some of these middle guys? How do you treat that?
I like Goddard relative to where Schultz and oh my gosh.
I can pull
Schultz
up
and
Hawkinson.
Schultz and Hawkinson. I don't think Goddard should be at the bottom of that. And if he is at the bottom of it, like in my overall rankings, I have him like right next to each other. If I have them in that order, not, the discrepancy that we're seeing here. So that would just be my thing. Zach Ertz is usually the guy where, like, if I have 0 tight ends, I really try to get him before I need to add another 1 or 2. If we don't get Ertz, I think that's where we're in potential 4 tight end territory, needing to stack that up. So we do have Burrow. I think adding Hayden Hurst a little bit later will be great. He's been someone consistently outside the top 20 that I just think should probably be going a bit higher. Yeah, all the way down there. So Hayden Hurst, don't hate that at all. For a while it was Evan Ingram that I was kind of taking that just 3rd or 4th tight end chance on. Now I've kind of moved on to Hayden Hurst. So we still got a lot of options though. I don't think we need to reach on the tight ends. Just we'll be more aware of it.
Yeah, nope, I agree there. I'm basically in the camp of, if I don't get an elite 1, I usually start I'm going to get 3, and I often start around this territory. The Irv Smith was obviously before the injury. Gesicki, I think, just like, his value's still pretty there. Silva's really against me on this one. He thinks that Gesicki is just not going to play anywhere near the same role he did before. So that concerns me a little.
I thought about that, and it is concerning having Tyreek, Waddle, Cedric Wilson in the slot. Like Mohamed Sanu, I don't think he's going to make the team, but just the amount of slot receivers they have really is absurd. But when we got that one tweet about like Gesicki not even like having like a receiving snap and just kind of working in line and seeing a depth chart, bro, that's his path. I think I don't think it's necessarily super likely that McDaniel gives Gesicki this 90% snap role as an inline tight end because he hasn't played that in the past. He's just been a big slot receiver, but if they do, that's the problem if he's not out there. But I think he has a better chance of being out there if his competition is like Durham Smythe and Adam Shaheen and Hunter Long versus Tyreek freaking Hill and some of these receivers. So I guess my point is I don't care where he lines up necessarily as long as he's out there on the field running routes. If he's running it against linebackers as an inline tight end as opposed to cornerbacks, not necessarily a bad thing. So if this continues to get baked into his cost and all of a sudden we can get him, outside the tight end 15 or so, I'm fine with that. I was very hesitant to treat him as, the tight end 1 that he kind of was earlier here in the offseason.
Yeah. And I mean, all right, we'll touch on that in a minute. This is a pretty ugly running back area. Do we then want to start reaching for a wide receiver? This definitely feels ugly.
I don't hate Miles Sanders this late. Evan Silva was saying a lot of good things about him on the podcast. And this is end of round 8 here. That's the one thing, like the running back dead zone. It wasn't so much the players. It was the fact that these players were going like rounds 4 and 5 last season. And I think now, especially on Underdog, where we do have the 3 wide receiver starting lineup aspect of it, we are seeing the running backs that just people don't really want push further and further down, man. So yeah, I mean, look at that. Only 5 running backs in round 6 or 7 drafted. Now we're kind of seeing a run of them again. So yeah, like AJ Dillon, I think has really been rising up now. It was fun getting him outside the top 24 for a while. He's now someone that I probably had enough exposure on. I believe in Tony Pollard and I don't hate taking the chance, but I would like to take him in round 8 or 9 instead of round 6 or 7 where he's been going. So it feels a little gross, but don't hate the player, hate the ADP, and ADPs for some of these guys starting to look a little better. And
I do think there is a substantial wide receiver drop off after this Renfro, Kirk, Burks, Tony, Devonta Smith group. And they're all going like in those mid 70s, early 80s. And then you start getting in. These are substantial question marks without maybe even that much upside.
We up, bro.
Shoot. You're right. Sorry. All right. What are we thinking?
Kareem Hunt, maybe?
Yeah, I like that. I don't mind it. We could still maybe even get a Patterson later on. I am not on Rashad Penny, as you can see. That would have been the other ADP option.
Penny just has so few ways to win. I think Kareem Hunt has far more room to potentially boom and just in terms of where he's going in drafts. If a trade happens, even if a trade doesn't happen, the guy's managed to be a low-end RB2 as Nick Chubb's sidekick. So I think there's a chance that Dearness Johnson is the one that ends up being traded. And if Kareem Hunt does get traded, man, like we'll put like the Buffalo Bills featured RB1 pipe dream aside for a second, but I don't see a team like trading for someone as freaking good as Kareem Hunt to be like an RB3 special teams guy. Like, I don't think that's even realistic. So I think you could argue his workload right now in Cleveland is basically like the floor of what we could kind of expect him to see a lot of these other offenses. And like, my God, dude, if and we all know why he left the Chiefs and, got on this small deal with the Browns in the first place. But if that had never happened, like Kareem Hunt could be the 101 as the Chiefs featured 3-down running back. Like that is his ceiling in the right offense.
I still got a I got a soft spot in my heart for Kareem Hunt. Got 200-1 odds on him to win the rushing title his rookie year. And that's when Spencer Ware was still healthy preseason injury, was in Vegas with the friends. And like, hey, it was that, hey, there's the contingent value where he could win that job. And that was always fun because he came out of the gate with like that 200 and some yard rushing game one.
Well, it was funny. His first career carry, he got like 10 yards, but he fumbled. And it was like, oh no, like, is he going to be in the doghouse now? And it was like, no, he's freaking amazing. And he just went the hell off. That was a fun game.
That was good.
All right, there goes Ertz. What are the tight ends?
All right, tight ends is where it starts dropping. I think we can probably just say, hey, we're grabbing 3 mid-late.
Do you think we need to even go 4, or is 3 fine depending on the 3?
4 is interesting. I think so. My big thing about weighting tight ends is, so last year, 4 tight ends had a pretty substantially strong win rate. And now when you dug into why that's the case, it's not because they chose 4, but it's because they had better chances to hit on those late guys that all went off. Because last year, 3 late tight ends, Dalton Schultz, Dawson Knox, and Rob Gronkowski, all were going very late and had great years. Now, what's the common factor there is all 3 of those offenses were extremely pass heavy and efficient in Buffalo, Dallas, and Tampa. So when I do go 3 late or 4 even, I'm only looking for the ones that have that upside. And so I think it's a viable strategy. You just need to, use it properly.
Okay. I don't think we need tight end here. I mean, there's a pretty big ADP gap.
I think running back, if we can grab one of these 2.
God, Penny's still here this late.
This might be when I grab him just for the diversification across my portfolio.
Look, I love CPAT. I have CPAT ranked higher, but when Penny is 20 freaking picks past ADP, like, come on now.
Yeah.
Getting some great value. It's another one of those things, like CPAT could make it back to us. I don't really see Penny getting there. So yeah, let's go Penny.
All right, let's go for it. And
it's a funky team. I'm liking it.
I mean, if you look, all of our running backs, so 44 and 35, 53 and 42, 92, like we're getting around, a little less than around, almost 2 rounds, 16, 26. Yeah, more than 2 rounds on Rashad Penny. That's pretty insane.
Scooping it.
I guess that's the value of streaming is you talk down the players like Rashad Penny just because you really don't like them. And then everyone else just lets them fall to you 2 rounds later.
We got to spam some running backs here. So it's okay. Hey, Penny can give us, if he can give us last year's stretch, that's fine. We don't need anything else. So
what are your thoughts on this? I mean, someone was mentioning, hey, grab Boyd because we do already have Burrow. We've got Chase and Higgins. Is it worth it to grab Boyd in that situation?
At this cost, I think it's okay. I mean, Boyd's another one that's starting to go like 10, almost a round past. Oh, he already went. Okay.
He went right before us, but I think it's still an interesting conversation.
Yeah. I'd be hesitant too. I definitely didn't feel the need to in the moment. So I guess that tells you all I need to know.
I'm probably between these 2 in this situation. We could use another wide receiver. There is a bit of a drop off.
I'm cool with Galladay.
Okay. Maybe it sets us up to grab Daniel Jones as well.
We can get a little Wandale later as well.
Nice little late stack, and Burrow's with 10. New York Giants are 9, so no issues there.
There we go. Maybe some Daniel Bellinger. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm just playing. I don't do fourth round rookie tight ends. Stop it.
I drafted him on a 20th round yesterday because
20th round. Okay.
Yeah. And it goes back to it's the uniqueness aspect where if he can provide that unique value because no one else is getting him. And like it's a fourth round tight end, but he also has no competition for that starter job.
If you say any name after 20th round, I think there's a path to rationalizing it. So I'm cool with that. Oh, Darrell Henderson just went. That's a good pick.
All right. So talking about Darrell Henderson, were you bullish on him before the reports? Was it more of a contingency? Do you think there's a way that he actually plays that 60-40 role, maybe even wins out the job? What's the kind of argument there?
I think Akers will be the guy, but it could be 60-40. And we've seen McVay consistently, man, other than in Pittsburgh, where just one running back after another kind of gets this workhorse role, like what McVay has done, and to a lesser extent, Cliff Kingsbury, these coaches have been two of the very few ones in the NFL just willing to give their lead running back that 80% role that you were saying earlier is, pretty much extinct throughout the NFL. And you're correct. But with McVay, man, whether it's Gurley, CJ Anderson, Cam Akers, last year, Henderson, Sony Michel, like last season, Najee Harris had 11 games with at least 80% of the offensive snaps. That was easily number one. No other running back had more than 5. But at the 5-game marks, Sony Michel and Darrell Henderson each had 5 during their respective stints as the Rams lead RB1. So I've been okay buying Akers at, like the bottom of round 4, basically, for the chance at that workhorse role. But at the same time, I've been cool buying Henderson later because of the contingency value you mentioned, when he also has, I think, just an easier path to actual standalone value than someone like Alexander Madison going in front of him. Madison's someone I was in on more earlier in the offseason when the Dalvin Cook legal situation wasn't as clearly going to be a 2023 thing, if at all, / I looked more at the change in coaching staff and wondered if maybe he could get some standalone value. But the more I think about it, man, as much as we could say Madison and Khalil Herbert and this new coaching staff, like maybe they carve out more of a role next to the number one running back, there's also the chance that if Dalvin Cook gets hurt, Madison doesn't have the same workhorse role they had underneath the previous coaching staff. And that's been a comment that Matthew Collar over at a Purple Insider, just a fantastic Minnesota Vikings reporter, put into my head, just saying that it'd be, a crime if they don't get Kene Nwanu a little bit more involved this season. And that is the thing, man. You look at Madison last year, and I know he gave us RB1 stuff when we put him in there, but beyond the fantasy production, he was not a good real life player, just very inefficient. He was getting there with 25 plus carries. And I'm not so sure that a brand new coaching staff is going to value him in the same manner. So give me someone that, again, is in, I think, a better offense with a better chance of standalone value and also has the same, if not higher, handcuff value. And Darrell Henderson, luckily, we still got Jamal Williams going a couple rounds later, so we can get him then.
Yeah. No, I hear that. All right. So we're in a situation all right. So I think we could probably wait at least one more on Daniel Jones. Wide receivers, probably not a need. It's either we can get some Dameon Pierce value, unless we like one of these two, which I like all 3 of these backs, or we can grab kind of our first tight end.
I'm cool. I don't have a strong lean on the tight end. Let's maybe go Dameon Pierce, 20 picks past ADP.
Yeah. I think that ADP, the value there is what leans it for me.
Let me see our running back room. Okay.
I think we may be able to stop at 6. Like it's not bad.
Yeah. Didn't take our first RB till round 4, but potentially able to stop at 6. I might again, I keep bringing him up, but if Jamal Williams is available at the right price, if he slips a little bit, I would be interested in that. It's just wild to see Jamal Williams here. I mean, a lot of people are in on the Detroit Lions, restoring the roar, becoming this potential playoff team. And you look at their second half schedule and it starts to make sense. And they have PFF's 3rd ranked offensive line going into this season. So DeAndre Swift is going to get his, he's going to be great, but I really think we could be looking at a slightly different version of kind of what the Cardinals offense was last year when both those guys were healthy. I mean, Swift can be kind of a spruced up Chase Edmonds, but I think Jamal Williams has an outside chance of being this year's James Conner, like the good veteran who's probably more so the 1B in his backfield, but we've seen him actually be able to handle a 3-down role when pressed into it at times. I understand last year, like, it wasn't the Jamal Williams takeover when DeAndre Swift got hurt, but Jamal Williams was also banged up during that. And when you start looking a little bit closer at the game logs, I mean, he was still clearing 15 touches and almost 20 in all those games with relative ease. So I would expect him to be far more of a featured back if something happened to Swift again this time around.
What about the Justin Jackson signing? Any concern? Well, here, let's do this first. Gesicki.
Yeah.
And so when we look at Daniel Jones, we have pick 164, 163.6. There's a chance he gets sniped, but I think it's worth taking that chance. And I think we get our tight end one.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Justin Jackson signed with Detroit recently, right?
I was surprised that Jackson didn't re-sign with the Chargers, because I just, he was the best running back last year over Kelly and Roundtree, but obviously they feel good enough about Spiller not to worry about it. I don't know, man. It's interesting. He's been very outspoken throughout his NFL career about just a bunch of issues he believes in, and I do wonder if that's why it took him this long to get signed. I mean, it's silly that we have to worry about things like that, but we've all seen that go on. So I don't know. That's the only thing that, because I'm off him, because I don't think when a running back signs in freaking early August or late July, like it's made me hesitant on Jerick McKinnon. It's made me hesitant on even Melvin Gordon having as big of a role as last season, because, like, why was this player not more so in your team's plans in March? I don't have, a big study to back this up, but I do think it is a point worth thinking about with it. So I personally think Justin Jackson is more of a battle for Godwin. I can't really pronounce his last name.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm not drafting Justin Jackson. I don't think I'm, looking for anything from Justin Jackson, but I will accept it's a bit of a thorn in the Jamal Williams situation. If DeAndre Swift was to go down, I'm not sure DeAndre Swift has that workhorse role that, we kind of saw the 19 averaging touches last year. So that's at least baked into mine a little, but I'm also on team Jamal because I think he has standalone value with that team just being better. And I'm not sure they want to use DeAndre Swift inside the, goal line.
It is one of those things, though, where you start looking at the running backs going around Jamal Williams. And again, like, that's really why I'm so willing to take that risk next to him. But there's a few guys later, man. Deontay Foreman, Hassan Haskins. Like, I think those are probably the two most likely, handcuffs for Derrick Henry Christian McCaffrey, and then Derrick Henry. So no, I don't think they're even, like we saw Mike Davis a couple years ago, like, provide some nice 3-down relief for Christian McCaffrey. I don't think either Foreman or Haskins would be that level of a 3-down player, but we saw Foreman provide some usable weeks last year when Henry was out, when he was getting like 20 plus rush attempts per game. So I think he could do that in Carolina, or Hassan Haskins could be that guy in Tennessee. Obviously, having Dontrell Hilliard, maybe Chuba Hubbard could complicate the pass down roles a little bit. But when we're this late, man, like, you just start looking at the running backs and it is mostly a wasteland. So more reasons to get some early if you can.
What are your thoughts here? Jay Duds over here taking Stafford and then pairing with Deshaun Watson. Bit of a risky situation. May not even have a QB early on. What's your overall kind of take on, from a drafting perspective, with Deshaun right now?
Let's see, round 13, probably a little early. I think I haven't had a way to measure this, but just I believe this to be true, that I bet just the drafts I've been in, Deshaun Watson is like the most volatile just range of where he could go of any quarterback out there. So you can get him still at the end of drafts. Sometimes I get my exposure to him at that point. If he's, I'm fine with Daniel Jones here. If Watson's like slipping at around 16, 17, like, okay, I'm cool with that. But you already had Matthew Stafford at that point. I do think that past Justin Fields, like, I would probably take Deshaun Watson next, just because, man, like, there's no one else that I think has that same level of upside, but just not someone I'm willing to really reach on.
Yeah, and I was talking a little about this on the spaces yesterday that we joined about. I think the upside scenario for Watson right now is 6 games suspended. Like, before, there was a little more upside, but I think I'm reading a lot of, really smarter than I lawyers. We're basically saying that because the NFLPA did not appeal the 6-game suspension, that will happen no matter what. That's like, the chance of that being pushed to 2023 is virtually none. So you accept that best case scenario, he's got 6 games, but then there's a legitimate chance that it actually could be substantially more. that's when I have backed off the Deshaun Watson. Not that I was heavy on it, but that scared me a lot when now we know his upside is 6 games.
No, that certainly makes sense. So yeah, after the appeal, I was far more willing to take chances on him in that 3 or 4 day window, and a little bit before then. I mean, when he was going like literally in the last round of drafts, kind of in July, like
Very
that
different.
was when I was more willing to draft him.
You got a favorite of these tight ends? We got Everett, we got Tunyon. I probably
I'm
lean
cool.
Everett, but
yeah, I'd lean Everett. Tunyon could still miss some time.
yeah,
Not
and I
exactly
think
sure when he's back.
for me, again, it's a betting on an offense. And these are the types of tight ends that we've seen break out with that. Yeah, the Knox, the Schultz, the Gronk, they were all on very good passing offenses. And so even though we've never seen like that kind of season out of Gerald Everett, like we were quite disappointed with him last year. Just being on that offense, we're hopeful.
And same thing with Hayden Hurst, who I'm hoping we can get to fall to us here next. If okay, Tunyon just went. That's good. That would have been a big, a little bit bigger leap with the position, but I 100% agree. I think Everett is in that. You could argue Tunyon's kind of in that potential group again with where he's going. Albert O, depending on the draft, certainly qualifies. Like we are looking for guys that could find their way into the end zone 8 to 10 times on 70 or so targets. We need that role, but we also need the quarterback that can be able to make that happen. The interesting thing with Everett, like they gave him twice as much money basically as what they gave Jared Cook to be their number 1 tight end last season. And Cook managed to get 85 targets. So yeah, Donald Parham, who I believe actually just hurt his hamstring, but even if he's back for week 1, he does play, but Herbert still finds a way. They have a lot of passing game volume to go around in Los Angeles. And while Everett was responsible for maybe like the single worst individual performance I saw last season, like he had this one game, my God, like we won't even talk about it anymore. Other than that, he has been a consistent athletic, yards after the catch friendly tight end throughout his career. And even once Russell Wilson came back into action, we were seeing him provide close to borderline. I think it actually might have been top 10 fantasy production over the final 2 months of the season. So Everett, he's one of these guys where he didn't get the snaps early on, and he hasn't gotten the full snaps because of Tyler Higbee, who the Rams paid a bunch of money, and Will Dissly, who the Seahawks paid a bunch of money. So it's not ideal, but similar thing with Hayden Hurst. Like when you start looking at the guys they've lost out to, they have been major investments. In Hurst's case, Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts. But he's gone. Fuck me.
Yeah, and Hayden Hurst went at the turn earlier, so it leaves us with Taysom and Hooper. I have not had Taysom, but maybe this is the time where we could use some upside at our tight end spot, or do we go with a safer, lower upside Hooper?
Cool with Taysom. I'm cool with Taysom.
Let's do it. Let's gamble.
I was honestly more no one talked about his Liz Frank injury coming back from that. And when I spoke to Fantasy Points, Dr. Edwin Porras, just the usual timelines, which, based on how soon some of these wide receivers are coming back, apparently means nothing anymore. But the Liz Frank timelines are what concern me more with Taysom Hill than anything. And I think the chance of him taking over at quarterback is not really there. I mean, they signed Andy Dalton to be Jameis's like clear-cut backup these days. With that said, he's got to get over the rib thing, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be the super long-term problem. We were hearing that he's going to have that usual, role near the goal line. There's a chance Taysom Hill could, find his way into, 6 or 8 rushing and receiving touchdowns. And that's a lot more than most tight ends in that range can really say for them. So yeah, I think Taysom, Brevin Jordan, maybe Mo Alley Cox. Those are kind of like the last of the last tight ends that I'm ever throwing some darts at.
And Bellinger, of course. No, I hear you. Okay, so we are at a 2-6-5-3. I think we're pretty set on QB, pretty set on tight end. Definitely need at least one wide receiver. Maybe play that last spot by ear. Maybe go with 2 wide receivers. This is what we've got on the board right now. What are you thinking? There's no real correlation opportunities.
I see you have a good amount of Cedric Wilson. I don't hate the player. I don't know where he's going to necessarily get the ball, but
yeah, it's a little ugly. I mean, Zay Jones has had positive camp reports.
Randall
We've
Cobb
got Damian Pierce to bring back.
Oh, this is so gross.
Or we
Cedric
could go
Wilson
with Brian Robinson.
Go Robinson.
Okay,
like
we're going to go 7 running backs, 6 wide receivers, but that's okay because we went heavy at wide receivers at the very top. Now we're looking for someone who maybe doesn't have crazy upside, but is just going to be on the field and give us a bit of stability probably.
Robinson, I think you can argue over McKissic, just period of format, but particularly in half point PPR like this. If Gibson gets hurt, like you could argue McKissic's role doesn't even change. Brian Robinson's could be the one really shooting up draft boards. It's always fun when that happens. We get a couple like last year when Chubb and Hunt were hurt. It was like Dearness Johnson versus Demetric Felton, and you kind of have this like split in the fantasy community. But usually, man, a lot of times those scat backs, they just are not given the benefit of the doubt. Got to be awfully careful, especially when they use a day 2 pick on a freaking grinder like Brian Robinson, who does seem certainly capable of carrying that early down role, maybe even more, man. It's exactly why, Antonio Gibson is now falling into rounds 8 and 9, unfortunately for him.
And I mean, so 2 things here. One is we did not go Gibson. I was thinking we went with the Miles Sanders instead. But what I was going to say about the Robinson is we have heard reports as well, like he's looking like he could get the goal line work. And, that's weird to hear that so early about a rookie before even a preseason game. They just don't like Gibson. Like there's something going on that we don't know about that, we see a guy who comes in, you expected him to be the pass catcher. You expected him to have a potential workhorse load. It has never happened. Then they use him for a substantial amount of carries, but then they go and draft Brian Robinson. Like there's sometimes you just gotta, I don't know. Sometimes at least
Gibson was bad last year. I understand he was playing hurt, but my God, he led the league in fumbles or was pretty close to, and it was not good, man. As a rookie, you saw the explosive plays and a lot of his advanced metrics, painted an absolutely ascending young back who was still just learning the position. Just didn't see it as much last year. I mean, it wasn't one of these things where it's like, man, why is McKissic out there? He's not doing anything. Like McKissic was making plays and looking a lot more dynamic, honestly, than Gibson. I saw the 70-yard house call against the Bills. I don't want to take away guys' great plays and say, look at the rest. Just saying, McKissic is one of these backups. Same thing with Jamal Williams. Same thing with Melvin Gordon, where it's fine to hype up the starter, but just realize, no, that's not just a guy we got over there. It's because of McKissic's receiving. I'm so tired of this notion where it's like, people, I think, just really overstate how much running backs even stay in the pass block. I mean, even someone like Ezekiel Elliott, you look at I think he only had 2 or 3 games last year where he had more than 5 pass blocking snaps in a single game. Like, you really think JD McKissic, who weighs 190 soaking wet, is in there to step up in the A gap over Antonio Gibson? It's just, come on.
Yeah. All right. Our final pick, my lean would be Cedric Wilson, just because we know he's going to be on the field and we need someone like that for this team.
He might throw a touchdown.
There you go.
I'll take Cedric.
Okay, let's do it. Let's lock it in. A bit of a unique team, but I gotta say I like it. I think we did pretty well. I'll let you take a little review of it. Starting off with our QBs, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm cool with Burrow where we got him. I've seen him start to. Last night in a not best ball, but football guys redraft stream I was doing, he ended up going I think before even Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray. So some people really start drinking the Joe Burrow Kool-Aid, but to complete our stack and get him past ADP, love to see that. Similar thing with Daniel Jones. Man, it was a good stream here, I think, for people to see, because we did have 3 or 4 instances where, we had a guy we wanted or a stack we wanted, but we played the ADP game. We were able to get someone else and then our original target at a more affordable price. Really the story of our running back room. Connor, Brees Hall, Sanders, all these guys just really falling well past ADP when we were able to get them. And that really allowed us to have a loaded wide receiver room. We only ended up taking 6 guys, but for good reason. Both Chase and Higgins in my top 8. Adam Thielen, as we talked about, someone that, hey, if we're talking about an upside wide receiver 2 and he just needs to stay healthy, that's better than a lot of guys who just don't even have that really in their likely range of outcomes. And I forgot we even got Deebo freaking Samuel on the squad. So Galladay and Wilson, we'll see. But when we got that big 4, I'm fine with it. Tight end, obviously the weak spot. But hey, to your point before, if we're able to nail this year's Dalton Schultz, Gronk, whoever the other guy was, trio, it's going to be looking pretty good for us. So I think we got a bullet, man. Let's see what happens.
I like it. I think it's pretty fun. I think one thing I'll throw on as well is historically you look and you're like, 2-7-6-3. That's not a winning roster combination. That advance rate probably isn't that great.
Not yet.
But
not yet.
Not yet. But what I think is worth mentioning is a 2-7-6-3, all 2-7-6-3s are not equal. all 2 6 7 threes are not equal. The difference between a 2 6 7 3, which is one of the most common ones, and this is literally whether we went Brian Robinson or Zay Jones. And so how often does that actually impact your success rate? Probably very small, but we found one that made sense for this. It made more sense for us to try to get that extra dart throw with upside in Brian Robinson than another extra wide receiver given this, because what would Zay Jones have to do if our top wide receivers are doing really well, which we're making a bet on? If our wide receivers are doing well, how great of a year would Zay Jones have to have? Like tremendous. Yeah. But how great of a year would Brian Robinson have to have for him to be one of our top 2-3 running backs, because our upside isn't as, because we don't have that floor, that average with the others, it's more likely. And so that's where I think like, hey, be willing to maybe go with that 4 tight end build or that 7 running back build if it fits the way you've been drafting.
I feel like the way you really screw yourself over roster construction is more so by not your final construction by in terms of what you're saying, but more so like in the first 11 or 12 rounds, if you leave yourself way too weak somewhere and then you're not really able to catch up at that point, just all the wide receivers are gone. You didn't get enough of them. So no, that's a really good point, man. I think again, probably focusing more so first 11 to maybe like 12, 13 rounds. Like that's probably where you need to be focusing a little more on your check marks and just trying to do this at the end, because I'll take Brian Robinson over Zay Jones, 8 days of the week.
Yeah. And Corey, it is not often I go 7. Occasionally I will, but when I go 7, to be honest, it's usually a 2-7-7-2. And I've got an elite tight end. I've got maybe the Lamar, Mark Andrews. And then if I went those, I probably went 3 wide receivers, Lamar, Mark. And now I'm like, okay, I need 7 running backs and I'll go 7 wide receivers. And there's that balance aspect. But in this one, Brian Robinson was more valuable than a dart throw wide receiver. And so that's why we went with it. But definitely fair.
Look how many running backs we got, like almost 20 spots past ADP. Like that's why we took them there. There's a lot of these, like Rashad Penny, Dameon Pierce. These are 2 guys that, like, per my rankings, I'm actively like fading because I don't expect to draft them at ADP. We didn't. We got them way after. So, okay.
All right. We're doing some quick math real quick. 24. We're counting what do we got on an average? So 20 and then another 25. 104 average ADP picks of value across 7 picks. That turns out to, on average, we were getting 14.8. So we got more than a round of value on every one of our running backs. That's insane.
Great day to be great.
Cheers. Well, Ian, this has been fantastic. Tell the people, what have you been doing? I know you've got your podcast. I know you've got your everything. Give the people what's going on.
Day after day, man, we're doing some fun positional previews over the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Right now, me, myself, and Dwayne McFarland had Rich Rebar on to talk quarterbacks. Got Matt Harmon coming on today to talk some wide receivers. Just broke down Evan Silva's top 150 on Friday. So bunch of team previews went throughout the summer. If you're just getting back into the swing of things with redraft, I guarantee you there's an episode on that feed that has exactly what you're looking for. So fun time best balling with you again, man. How's your exposure kind of work for best ball? Like, are you kind of like 75% in because we've had all off season, or are you just kind of doing nothing but drafting here for the next few weeks?
Yeah. So for Best Ball Mania, I think I'm at about 90, which puts me at about 2 drafts per day going forward, which I'm pretty okay with. I like that. On the other sites like DraftKings and some of the others where I think as you get into August, it doesn't get that much softer on Underdog because the people who are playing now, maybe it's different because, Underdog, bigger company now, blasting more marketing, but I think historically it's been pretty consistent. The DraftKings, the other sites are where I expect like, hey, this is where the fish are really coming. And so that's where I honestly want to focus more of my time. But for the most part, August is crazy. Are you coming to Canton next weekend?
Yes, sir. I'll be there Saturday night, Sunday night. Expo season. Gonna be a good time.
Nice. Well, I will see you there. We'll have a beer, talk some more best ball. Anyone else that will be there, can't wait to meet a bunch of people at the FF Expo this upcoming weekend in Canton. Other than that, this has been fantastic. I will see you all on Thursday as we do another stream. See you all later.